Good morning, my loves. Happy Friday. I'm in the woods, as you can see, and it is most definitely a more autumnal vibe now than the last couple of months. It's really drawing in, and it's cool and refreshing. A little bit like the lovely Virgo energy that flows through our lives, our charts, our days, whatever and however we are applying ourselves. So, what is going on in the world of Ascension, and how are you all navigating it? I had a lovely coming together on WAGS yesterday, the Wednesday Ascension group support, even though it was Thursday. I was busy on Wednesday this week, and we were talking about the healing that occurs when we all come together, and also the infusion of joy into our process. Now, you might be listening to my words and wondering, with the world in the way that it is, with the news doing what the news does, with the way that we are perceiving our lives, how does joy have a place or even serve a purpose? Because in many of our lives, and I'm speaking right on my doorstep here, joy seems to be something that we have to strive for. It became, as I was speaking yesterday, as I was working through this, it became even more apparent how we've been living, how the matrix or our previous realm of existence, how it was set up, how it's been set up, how it's been organically and inorganically structured to basically keep us as almost voluntary prisoners of our own unconsciousness. So we go about our daily lives, we do the things that we have to do, that we feel obliged to do, we've made these contracts, we've signed the papers, we've made these agreements as people that want this, as places to go, stuff to do, in a perpetual cycle of never-ending busyness. And I noticed the other day, it's funny how many just what we would call as normies are beginning to kind of really pick up on the vibe. There's so many people, there's so many millions and billions of people out there that have woken up, and they're in the primary stages of navigating spiritual expansion. They've got no idea. They haven't got a bloody Scooby-Doo what's going on. And there was this chap who was online, I think he's a farmer if I remember rightly, and he was talking about how I think it was about 5 years ago he started his homestead. This is in the United States, somewhere, middle America, where there's a lot of farmland. He's got his own homestead, got his own cows and sheep and fields to kind of grow crops. And he said he used to be able to kind of get through a working day like relatively easily. There's always a lot to do, an incredible amount to do. But by the end of it, it'd be like, yeah, I've got that done. And all of a sudden now, with the same amount of daytime, with the same amount of minutes in the day, and apparently time flowing as it does, he's running out of time. And this, it just basically verifies that time is, in our conscious state, speeding up as we move out of the very fixed structure of the third dimension into a far more fluid way of being, where time can race and time can slow down depending on what the energies are, but more importantly what the focus and the application of our consciousness is. I mean, we all remember our school days, don't we? Like those long lessons that we found ineffably boring, and we'd just be like dragging literally clock watching to the end of the day. Or those of us that have had office jobs where you kind of clean You've kind of cleaned down the cabinets and done the hoovering, and you've finished off what you're supposed to be doing, and you're like, is it time to go home yet? And the minutes just tick by so slowly. Well, that appears to be a thing of the past. The days are just racing. And if you think about it logically, we are being saturated, we're being overwhelmed with information at all time. Our mental stimulus are kind of the alarm bells are perpetually ringing, and they have been ringing subconsciously in us for 5 years since the world changed. Those of us with a spiritual understanding of what's occurring will be very aware of why the world is changing and the direction of travel, and the needs that this process has in order to transform an entire population, a world full of people, the majority of whom have agreed to go through this ascension process. We know why it's necessary, but that doesn't actually mean that it is comfortable. In fact, we've become very accustomed to our discomfort. Our comfort is found in the regularity of the discomfort which we experience on a daily basis. And as soon as it goes quiet, as soon as we've left with our own thoughts for any length of time, as soon as the tablet goes off, or the TV's not on, or we're left with our own thoughts, then we begin to become aware of the racing that is going on inside. And this goes across the board, for people that are aware and people who are not aware of themselves and their processes, of which there are still quite a few out there. There are still many souls that are kind of completely plugged in, completely immersed. Now this kind of goes against the grain. It goes slightly against the plan, the grand plan, the great plan which is being enacted upon this earth. So what we see because there is this mixture of reflections and shadows and clearings and karmic revelations, we're seeing an incredibly mixed bag of what we're being presented with. We're being presented with some incredibly tough things to witness, but we're also being presented with an incredible amount of good and an incredible amount of beauty. But as beloved Mary, Mother of Jesus, said to me at the start of the year, it becomes so obvious why. I mean, I was sat here beginning of January asking what's coming up, what's going to be going on, and she said so very clearly, you're going to be offered 2 pathways this year. You're going to be offered one way which contains the joy of your joy, your birthright. You have every right to be living in peace. You have every right to be joyful. You have every right to spend every day happy, calm, embodied, unified, and enjoying what you do. And then there's the other pathway, which is filled with quick fixes. It's inorganic. It's filled with so many distractions. It's impossible to ignore if you're plugged into it. And so she was saying one pathway, and this is specifically for where we are this year, specifically for 2025. One pathway is easy. It's the pathway that the majority of people find themselves being drawn into if they've got no self-discipline. And then there's the other pathway, the pathway of joy, of happiness, of peace, of understanding, of unity. And she said, but that's the one you got to work for, because at the moment the entire system is set against human beings experiencing joy. What the powers that were would like you to be is on your back heel, moving away, defending yourself in a constant state of stress, nervousness, hypervigilance. All of these are the natural states of a wild animal that's being threatened. Say for example, you go out for a walk in the forest and you see a deer. That deer is going to be aware of you long before, unless you're very sneaky and very quiet and you're moving downwind or whatever, or upwind or wherever it is. It's going to be aware of you. It's going to have heard you. It's going to have seen you. It's going to have sensed you, because it is constantly in fear of its life. That's its natural instinct. That's its state. And human beings have gradually, particularly in the last 5 years, begun to move into that state, because we're perpetually waiting for the hammer to fall. What are they going to do next? What's coming at us? The circumstances of 2020 were so unnatural and so against what we've ever experienced previously that most of us are still in that state, whether we are highly trained, whether we are spiritually aware, whether we are focused upon our pathway or not. And so joy is something that we choose and we work at. And although on a day-to-day basis those glimmers of joy might appear to be fleeting, the more we do it, the more we focus, the more we are immersed and fully intending to have that experience, the more it comes about, the more it becomes the aspect of our reality. So choosing joy or not choosing joy, that's basically the key to the Ascension pathway. And I said to my WAGS group yesterday, when push comes to shove, ask yourself this question: am I doing what brings joy into my life? Am I fulfilling my needs? I mean, we've been trained as human beings, and especially as spiritual teachers, healers, leaders, earth workers, warriors, whatever you want to identify yourself as. We've been trained to put everybody else first. That was inserted into the spiritual field back in medieval times, where if you were a man or a woman of God, then you had nothing, because you only needed the love and the light of God in your heart. And that's paradoxical to what we are actually deserved of, because we deserve abundance, we deserve love, we deserve to be surrounded by the things that make us comfortable. I mean, if you're comfortable hiding out in a cave dressed in an itchy cassock, then great, fill your boots. But on an abundance level, we're also retraining ourselves to love ourselves enough to bring into our lives what we truly deserve. But we've been so programmed and so manipulated and so distorted over the years to believe that, if we've got the basic daily comforts and we're just kind of cruising through life and don't want any trouble from the outside world, then that's enough. And so this is what prevents so many people from raising their head above the parapet, because once you do, you become visible. Your light becomes seen. There's so many conversations I've had over the years, particularly in the last 10 years, where I personally, as a person in the position that I've been gifted with, can see who is ready, who has what it takes to step up and do what they're going to do, to bring the gifts and the talents through and to actually step into service and help this world. And the biggest step is always being seen, being visible, okay? Because once your light's out there, that's it. It's never going away. And the job is then to glow brighter, to be more in your authentic, real, vibrant, shiny self. And that can be a difficult thing for a lot of us to overcome, especially if we are carrying wounds of persecution from a previous life. Many of us came through with lots of those. We've shone our light in the past, so we've stood up for what we believe in spiritually. We've spoken words of truth even when our voice shakes and we fear death. And yeah, some of us have experienced that on many occasions. And we've carried those wounds through into this lifetime. We're now working through those as we step up again. And particularly, I mean, my experiences with that carried me back to the fall of Atlantis. And some of you might know this story already. The first day that I ever stood up in front of a group of people was it was a surprise. I took my good friend Diana Cooper to Mind, Body, Spirit in London. She had an audience of 400 people. It was a huge crowd. From my perspective, you couldn't even see the back of the room. And we just agreed to write the Archangel Guide to Ascension together. I'd never spoken publicly before. I thought I could get away with writing a book and hiding away and never having to show my face or do anything. And she brought me up on stage quite by surprise and asked me to do my Blue Star Seal meditation. And I was so horrified by the experience that on the way home, I was asking myself as I was driving back down the motorway from London to Dorset, why I felt that way. I mean, naturally, we have a fear of making ourselves look silly. Most of us have had that since primary school, it's just a human response. But mine was acute. And all of a sudden, I was shown this very, very clear vision of myself in Atlantis as a high priest, as I was back in those times. And above me, the sky was grey and, black clouds were swirling, almost as if there was going to be a tube coming down like a tornado. And in front of me were hundreds or maybe even thousands of souls that used to listen to the words that I had to say, but they had gone off the rails. They were partying, they were laughing, involved in the debauchery of the final days of Atlantis. When it went downhill with the wind behind it. And nobody was listening, and I lost my cool because I knew it was essential that people listened or Atlantis was going to sink. And because my words were not from my heart, they turned on me and I barely escaped with my life. Now that closed my throat, and it closed it for a considerable amount of many lifetimes, until this one, when I began to clear. So I feel you if you are reticent or wondering how you're going to stand up and speak, how you're going to use your voice, how you're going to be seen, because we will all be carrying some kind of wounding, persecution from the past. It's almost obligatory, I suppose, for us to have served in some way previously in order to train us for the lifetime that we are mastering at the moment, so to speak. So choosing joy, that's such a big thing. It's down to us, okay? It's down to us. There's nobody who's going to come in and do your ascension process for you, nice as though that would be. We have to be very firm, lines in the sand about what we choose to engage with. There's been some really disturbing news that's come out, particularly over the last 3 days or so. Anybody who's engaging with that will automatically have their vibration dropped like a stone. There's no navigating around it. Okay, if you are emotionally invested in something terrible that is occurring, your vibration will drop. If you then act from a point of anger or rage or indignance or retribution, you will be meeting that field on the third dimensional frequency, and a pretty low one at that. And that is what we are witnessing, the stirrings up, the continuous, the witch's cauldron with all of these different ingredients being placed in it. How many times I've sat out in these woods or maybe on my walks or somewhere else and said, unplug from the field, but I am driven again and again and again to remind myself and everybody out there that this is what we must do. actively choosing joy, actively choosing something positive to focus upon, even if we have to do it 10, 15, 20, 50 times a day, that's our duty, to become a beacon of light. Because at the world, every single shadow that could possibly be released into the field is dancing around, wanting our attention. And it's essential that we do not give it our attention, because our attention and our intention is our greatest currency. That is your energy, okay? It's the same as giving your money away or anything else that you have that is precious to you. Your energy is your greatest currency. And once we start exchanging that for third dimensional goods, a third dimensional experience is what we have bought and paid for. So what is it that you wish to purchase with your energy? What exchange do you want from the reflections around you? What do you wish to bring into your life? I'm choosing joy. And I had Lord Lanto, who carries the yellow ray of joy, smiling in my fields yesterday as I was talking about it. So as we move towards this equinox, as we're rapidly approaching the September equinox, depending on where you are, it'll either be spring or autumn on this beautiful planet. Choose very clearly what it is that you wish to experience, what you take in, and spend your currency wisely. Well, for those of you that are coming to Uppsala, look forward to seeing you. And I believe I've got a Sunday night Ascension Club coming up on Sunday night. So the details of that will be in the chat at the bottom of this video. And yeah, just sending you all so much love. Thank you for joining me on my woodland reflections this morning. Bye for now.